All right. Is everybody seeing Colorado by the numbers? Should be. Yes, thank you. Okay. So my first thing is we are at LRS are here to help you. This is something, our whole reason for being is to collect and use statistics to do large scale and small scale research and just to be a resource for librarians across the state. So we have a couple of things happening kind of all at once all the time. So right now we have a couple of big research projects that we're doing. One is with High Plains Library District. It's called Measuring Outreach Better. And this is about trying to figure out how to better serve immigrants and refugees in library systems. And they chose to go with a metric of belonging. So whether or not the libraries feel like the library belongs to them, and then how they can use that to better serve folks that are joining our communities at, in some cases, unprecedented rates, and some cases just always are coming into our communities. So we've been working on that one with them. That's again a big project, and it's out for publication now. Like it's just winding up. But I think we've been working with them for 3 or 4 years, maybe 4 years on that or more. But getting some really interesting research and research that hasn't ever been done anywhere before. Our second one there, the PRISM project, is also first of its kind research that is IMLS funded. And it is all about prison libraries and how they work in the lives of the people that are incarcerated. And we were able to, working with institutional library development and then the Colorado Department of Corrections, actually get into 19 out of the 20 adult prisons in the state of Colorado, state-funded adult prisons. We have 2 privates that we did not go to, and speak to hundreds of people, every custody level, every, situation. And just sit in their libraries with them and ask them the questions that we ask in public libraries every day about what libraries mean to them. So that research is ongoing through next year. We'll be presenting on that at ALA, and then hopefully CalCon, you'll see some on that. But that again is just like big research that takes numbers of years, but is really, I think, contributing to the conversation, the research conversation across libraries, and really owes a lot to people in Colorado who are willing to do this kind of big research. On a smaller but more regular scale, we do surveys and reports. So the Public Library Annual Report, probably that's top of mind for folks since that closed on Friday. It's definitely top of mind for me because it closed on Friday. We also do the school library survey, which we've just started up again, along with Susie Tonini in library development, trying to figure out what's going on with school libraries. We also report on challenges each year. So we reach out to libraries that report that they've had materials or service challenges and just get ideas about where that's going, what's happening, things like that. We are, along with Tia Frankish in library development, going to update that this year. So look for news on that soon. We hope we'll be able to be more responsive and get more quick information since we've been doing it annually since easily the 90s, probably before. But now in our current situation with challenges, we think more timely information will be important. So we're going to be working on that. We also do reports like check out Colorado State Parks, which is one of library development here at CSL's biggest programs. We do reporting on that with them. So there should be an article coming out on that as well pretty soon. And then we provide some software. We provide the DART reference tracker. We're really spinning up a lot of reporting things also, kind of in coming times. And you'll get a preview of a couple of those here. So for all of these, if you have questions or you have surveys you want to do or you have research you want to do, absolutely reach out anytime. We're happy to talk, happy to get into really big projects or help you do a survey or just look at how can you best use your ILS information. Like we're happy to do that. We also do, Sarah on my team does this library blueprints blog where she talks about different things for data visualization and surveys and things like that. It's a really good blog. You can sign up for it on our website to sign up for a mailing list for that. She did just write this week, so very timely, or this month, a blog about using diverging bar charts to show connected collections. So talking about interlibrary loan. And I just grabbed a little screenshot of the information there. It is, the light blue is ILLs loaned, the dark, I think it's green, is ILLs borrowed, and it just kind of shows like your lending and your borrowing next to each other, which I think is really interesting, depending on what you're trying to do with that program. So that blog goes into a ton of detail about that process of creating these kind of charts. Also, the public library annual report, which is where we get a ton of our statistics, because that's the primary place where we come to you to get numbers. It has a bunch of reasons that I think it's useful, but I think an important but not super interesting one is that it fulfills library law. You're following the law by turning in your report. It also, I think, a lot more interesting, the next ones, gives important information to your leadership and your communities and all of those things. It also adds to this great body of public library data with Library Search and Compare, which has been updated, I think, this year to be a lot more user-friendly. You add to our knowledge of Colorado libraries, which goes back again to the 90s or earlier. It gets kind of spotty before 1997, but we've had a pretty complete data set since then. There's also PLA benchmark, which you can use, that pulls this data. It also, something I'm learning recently is that people are really using this data, not specifically Colorado, but across the country, to do some really interesting research work. Like this IMLS report on public library services during COVID. The next two actually are by a researcher out of Montana State, who is doing really interesting work on how monetary investments in libraries improve reading scores, which I think is something that we've talked about a lot, but he's an economist and does some really interesting work there. There's also a person, he's in Boulder, he's a researcher, that did this mapping the impact of public library programming and found some really interesting stuff about specifically Colorado. And then I just started digging into like public health information, but this public libraries and walkable neighborhoods is a public health thing. So how do libraries contribute to public health as being part of a neighborhood and as anchor institutions and things like that? So you're contributing to that when you help us with our data there with the public library annual report. Here is a screenshot of Library Search and Compare, looking much better. You just like choose the library and you choose the one you want to compare against, and you can compare on any of the things that are in the public library report. We do ask some state level questions, so not everything that you put into your public library annual report will be in there, but the big ones are. And that's nice because you can do in-state comparisons or across the country. There is a data lag on that one because they process the entire country. So it's a little bit behind. I think it's still reporting 2021. 2022 should be coming up soon. And then I pulled some public library annual report data and just dropped it into a really quick Tableau dashboard to show how our ILLs loaned and borrowed look against a state that is roughly similar to us in size, which is Minnesota. And this is really cool because this is a static photo actually of the thing, but this is really cool because you can go through and look, like this really tall blue in the middle is, I think it's Longmont. I'm gonna have to look. So I'll show you how that looks. I don't want to, but you can hover over this and see, yes, Longmont has these just like huge numbers that they're putting up both on borrowed and loans, but you can compare then against Hennepin County. That is where Minneapolis is. So you could compare that against, Denver County if you wanted, which would be over here. And this is a super simple one. We've got more complex stuff happening, but this is something that I was able to pull that data out and just drop in and say, hey, this is interesting. We're doing more loans and more borrowers than Minnesota, even though we're roughly the same size. And then this is from returns on public library investment. I dug through and found what I felt like this is a massively complex chart, but if you look at it, it gives you that idea of this dotted line is a capital construction of, it was more than $200 per person, might be per student. This person's doing really complicated analysis, but this shows when you build the school at that dotted line, or you not build the school, add to the library in some way, then here's your reading scores and how much they jump over time, over 7 years. So pretty interesting stuff. Just going on with the data generally. Then we are developing, this is back into LRS. This is research that we're doing along with library development. We are developing some new dashboards for you. This one I think is really interesting because it takes our salary data that we ask you for every year, and I know it's super complicated, but it puts it into these charts where you can see if your clerks are being paid above or below the self-sufficiency income for your area. So it just gives you a really good way to say, okay, here's where our salary is, where do we want it to be, things like that. The self-sufficiency wage is the green line, and then the dot is the amount per county that clerks are being paid for this one. And you can go through its director, assistant director, departmental managers, things like that, and it just gives you a really clear idea of where kind of we're living salary-wise as libraries. And then we have similar things for circulation that we're developing. So this is all going to go into a big sleek dashboard. These are kind of disjointed parts at the moment, but we can see like Colorado circulation versus national. We also have this interesting one of electronic circulation versus physical, and you can see where electronic really took that big bite this is 2020, where this kind of big bite comes out right here. So we're going to be doing things like that. We're going to be developing more. If you have an idea of something that would look really interesting, please reach out to us and we'll work on kind of how to make that look, things like that. We also do reporting, really standard reporting. You go to our main website where you'd fill out the PLAR, colorado.countingopinions.com, and click on any of these links. And they will give you a report of LSA is your legal service area, so the size of your community. And those reports, not as beautiful, but if we don't have a dashboard piece for you yet, you can come in and look at this and get a lot of really cool information, just one after another. And finally, the part that I promised for this talk is this Colorado Libraries by the Numbers. And what I'm using here is the quotable facts booklet. We will have updated ones with 2023 information at CalCon. So look out for us with our little booklets, but here's some of the stuff that I think it's really cool, the sheer number of things that libraries do in Colorado. Like the Library of Things, that's a new thing that we've been asking about, and that's, like cake pans and sewing machines and parks passes and things like that. And we have 34,130 items available across the state. We also have we started asking about one-on-one help with technology and found that 92% of libraries are using that. And people, of course, are using the internet computers like gangbusters, always. And then I thought I had one more of those, but we just have this increasing access. We've got millions of ebooks, audiobooks, streamable songs, things like that. There's a bunch more of these little things. I didn't want to walk you through the whole booklet, but you can click on the link or go to lrs.org and find that quotable facts in like a printable PDF. So, that's all that I have prepared. If folks have questions, I'm happy to take questions. I do ask that you take our survey. That goes back to, and I will copy and paste this into the chat, but that goes back to our IMLS because we are funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So we report on the effectiveness of our training. So that's what that is. Yeah. So do we have any questions?
Folks, you can feel free to pop questions into the chat for Carissa, or go ahead and unmute yourself even if you so choose.
Sharing so I can share that link.
I don't have a question, but I would just like to say, Carissa and everybody at LRS and the State Library for that matter, it is so impressive what you guys do. I've worked in several states and not every state has anything this robust as what y'all do. And it is incredible. And if anybody here has not really explored their site at lrs.org, you should. It's an incredible wealth of support and information.
Thank you. I think that's partially too, I've worked in a couple of states as well. And I think that's partially down to Colorado being so willing to collaborate too, just like as a library culture here. I think we have something really impressive. And so the state library gets to really just plug into that.
Right, we still have a few minutes, so feel free to post questions.
I probably could have jammed like one more chart into that, but I felt like I was getting to the point of like too much.
It's fascinating, though. That state by state, side by side was very interesting.
Yeah,
Way to go, Longmont.
The what?
I said, way to go, Longmont, also.
I know, I'm sure that folks in this meeting know more about this, but I was like, man, Longmont's putting up numbers, like on both sides too.
Yeah. Impressive. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions, though someone may want to double check me because I may have gotten behind in my chats.
I don't see anything either.
Okay. All right. Well, Carissa did put her survey link there, so go ahead and you got a few extra minutes to take that. And I think at this point, though we kind of rushed ourselves there, we're a couple minutes